I don't know quite what was the initial inspiration for the Banana Olympics, but parody is a very major tool in my oeuvre, for sure. I mean, Vile and Banana Rag is a newsletter, and so the Banana Olympics, I don't know what triggered it, whether there was an Olympics Games that year that might have, I don't know even with the other one, but anyway, somehow or another, it came into my field of vision, and the idea of doing a parody just was delicious. And there were a lot of events that had already been reported to me that were of an Olympic nature. In other words, there were many mile-long banana split events that people would send me newspaper clippings about, and then there seemed to be an ongoing war of who could do the longest banana split. So I think that might have helped, bump me over into the Olympic fields and thinking, well, what can you do with that? And the possibilities were just so delicious to me, because for one thing, I find spectator sport to be something that is such a distraction for most people and such an investment. The bigger the event, the more money that gets invested in it. And it's only about everybody watching somebody doing these little things. So to me, the Banana Olympics would make it open to anyone. They didn't have to be athletes, they didn't have to be artists, anyone who was inspired to come in and create a costume. The terms of the Olympics were all people could participate. You could costume yourself however you wanted, and that the way to win the races wasn't to cross the finish line first, but to do it with the most appeal. And puns are another thing that I like to play with. So it was encouraging people to be creative with their performance of the race rather than just going for it to try to be there first. So those were all background information about where I'm coming from that was incorporated into these events. I was by then working for the San Francisco Bay Guardian, and the staff of the Bay Guardian had already participated in my 1974 Columbus Day Parade entry, and they were keen. Even the publisher, now I don't think the publisher came into the Banana Olympics, but his partner, Jean Dibble, did. I saw her in one of the races. So they decided to give me the back page, the whole back page of the Bay Guardian, a tabloid paper, and we came up. I asked my network for suggestions for the races so that the network was involved, and I actually had some people come for the event for that, but always with the idea of parodying the real things. So, and humor obviously is the way to go as far as I was concerned. So the Bay Guardian also, the page had a series of me in my goofy banana costume across the top, and then there were the races and the rules, and then in the lower corner there was also a banana music contest, which is where the Ramalama people that came into and Billy Sheets and the Banana Song. I don't know who wrote the song. I suspect perhaps it was Billy Sheets, but anyway. So it was a big invitation to the community at large to participate, and there was a coupon for them to clip and fill out what their names were and so on. And we received, between the time that went in the paper and when the event took place, over 100 people entered as contestants for the events. So where do we go from there? That was the germination of the event. And the actual execution, I had meetings in my home. I had people coming and taking different roles as far as volunteers were concerned. There was no money exchanged in the whole thing. There were no, what do you call them, fees to participate. Nobody put money into it. The Parks Board allowed me the use of that plaza with no charge, no thing, except that a few weeks before the event I went to check out this plaza and found that they were all these craft people occupying Embarcadero Plaza, and I was like, oh, so I went around and talked to people, and they were not amused with the idea of a Banana Olympics, because then people would be watching the Olympics and not buying their crafts or whatever they were selling. So we ended up with a crew going to the plaza at 5 in the morning before any of the craft people showed up, and delineating what our area was, because there was a stage and there was a place where the track could be, and they were on the periphery and not very happy, but we managed to do that. And the day of the event, it all went very well. There was no conflicts that I was aware of. There was one strange street person that sort of interjected himself a couple of times into the things, but for the most part, it was a day of participation and amusement and the music. And then there was the guy with the Dada poem who came along, and I guess he was part of, I don't know whether he heard about it. Well, he might have just seen it in the paper and said, I want to do a Dada piece. And I, well, okay, sure. And so it went. And one guy came from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the guy with that big black Darth Vader costume thing. He was one of my correspondents. And the correspondent, Klaus Groh, came from Germany. He was one of the judges. And there was a guy who came from Canada whose name I've slipped. He was part of it. And then there was also Marek Koniecki, who came from Poland, got to New York, got on a bus, traveled all the way across the country by bus, which must have been excruciating, and arrived in San Francisco 5 hours after the event was over. So he got his picture in the newspaper as the late comer for the event, but and there were probably other Bay Area artists were all involved, all the Bay Area Dadists and hangers-on. Like I said, there was about a dozen people that I had been corresponding with when I first arrived in San Francisco. So they were like the core group, really. The Bay Area Dadists, of course, with their Dada costumes. The costumes were quite wonderful in that whole event. And nobody was paid, they just did it. I thought it was fantastic.